This video is all about learning how to demonstrate the proper use of object.assign, array.map, array.concat, and array.filter in JavaScript. So we've been talking about this idea of immutability and why Redux is a good solution to a problem in terms of predicting the changes to our state management and providing us insight into what changes take place and how exposing these concepts of immutable programming really help us alleviate some of these issues that we end up writing into our code. So remember that Redux is based on this principle of immutability. Learning and familiarizing yourself with this principle will help you in many aspects of your development career. It is also imperative for one to understand the idea of immutability when discussing Redux, because this idea of an immutable state object is baked into Redux itself. And remember, it's not new to programming. It's just a bit clunky in the beginning to get used to in JavaScript. Okay. And remember, this objective here is aimed at getting us all prepared to deal with the Redux store. Because it's just an object itself, okay? And as we learned previously, JavaScript types can be separated into two categories. We have a category that's called primitive types and a category that's called reference types. Okay, so let's go back to this example really quick here, just so that we can see like a reference type, right? Because a primitive type would be something like const my num equals 10, const my name equals the string Ryan. So these are primitives, right? String, number, const is awesome, Boolean, right? These are all primitives, even object. However, on line 2, we have a new object that is pointing to another object by reference. And what I mean by that, if I were to take new object and modify its contents, and then console.log both of them, you'll see that my object has been mutated, okay? So we're gonna learn how to fix that problem. And the way we're gonna learn that is by using the object.assign method, okay? So if I wanna say const my object, and I have some items here that I wanna fill this in with, equals the name Ryan, and then I have some math, some scores and some assignments that I've gotten here at Lambda School. I have since this example came out. And what if I want to change or add to any of the items in this list? What if I grow by a year, right? What if I update my age on my birthday? Well, what I need to do is actually create a new object, okay? And how I do that is say const new object. Instead of pointing it to my object, I'm going to use the object.assign method. And what this does is it actually allows us to create a new object from scratch, okay? But there's a little bit of syntax here that we have to go over. We need to give object.assign, this method, this function on the object prototype in JavaScript, a couple of instructions. The first is create a new object from scratch. So this first item is going to be the object that gets returned out of this function, okay? And then we need to modify that object by simply saying the object that I want to clone is going to be my object. Okay? And then the third argument that we supply this are the changes. Okay? So the change that I want to make is my object dot age plus 1. Just add 1 year to it. And it's that simple. Running a little bit out of real estate there. But I wanted to make sure that I commented this out so that you saw what the 3 arguments you need to pass to object.assign are. The first one is the new object that gets returned. Object, nice. That gets returned out of the function. The next one is the object you want copied. And then the last one are the changes to the copied object. So now what we can do is we can say console.log myObj. Okay. And then console.log new object. And you'll notice that I have not created any side effects to the original object. Okay. Now, we have sort of a conundrum because there is a nested object or an array inside of my object. So what do we need to do to modify that array without making any changes? Well, let's go back here and let's say that I got a new score or added a score of some sort or something like that. Well, because scores is an array, which is just an object, we could get ourselves into some trouble here because we could modify the nested object itself or a reference to it. Let's take a look at what happens if I were to just try and go myObject.scores, scores, this has to be scores. And then I just try to say .push an item like, let's see, what would throw the curve? 50. I don't want the string, I want the number 50. Okay. Well, let's console log our objects again. Notice that I can get a hint of what just happened to my object, the original object, by looking at my console log. I added 50 to the original array. Okay, so that's the bummer. That's the side effect, right? So we need to do this in an immutable way. Well, one thing that we could do is we could say myObject.concat, and we could just simply concat 50 into that object. Oh, myObject.scores.concat. And I'll wait for my compiler. And we got to get rid of that semicolon. And take a look at this. We actually created a new array by calling concat. Okay. Now to prove that it worked, I need to console.log and console log my new object and take a look at the side effects that aren't there. Original object doesn't have 50. New object does. All because we called this concat method. Now concat is a method on the array object that we're going to explore in just a minute. But I wanted to make sure that you knew that if you were working with nested objects or arrays inside of objects, that those can get you into trouble if you think that you're not creating a reference as well. Okay? And all of this is to help you understand the principles of immutability. Okay? All right, let's keep forging ahead, and let's look at all of these awesome ideas or awesome methods that are provided to us on the array object. Okay, on the array prototype. Okay. So if I had my array, set that equal to, and all of these examples come right out of your training kit, so you can dive right in there. And remember, just kind of a quick reminder, if I wanted to filter this array out without causing any side effects, and if I just wanted to, use the filter method to get all the evens out of this array, I would create a new array from scratch. And of course, I would want to say to return only the numbers who passed the the truth test of if it's divisible by 2 with a remainder of 0. Okay? And conversely, I could do the same thing for odds. Odds would just be not equal to 0. So let's look at our evens array. I want a console.log. Should probably stop creating typos. And I have a typo here. Notice that my compiler is telling me, hey, num is not defined. Well, it's not. And my odds is not a thing either, so we better not have the typos. And notice that our 1, 2, 3 through 7, our evens array gets us 2, 4, 6, and our odds array gets us 1, 3, 5, and 7. And if I were to console.log the given array, we didn't produce any side effects to it. We didn't change anything. All of its contents are exactly the same as they used to be. And that's one of the things that makes filters so powerful. Okay. If I wanted to just swap, if I wanted to say I want to combine our two arrays together, well, I could use that concat method that we went over in the beginning. And so what I want to do now is say const, whoa, why are you yelling? I want to say const evens then odds equals, and we could say evens dot concat and then pass it my odds. And what that's going to do is we're going to console.log that one. Evens, then odds. And notice that we have 2, 4, 6, 1, 3, 5, and 7. Okay? And concat is also one of those that doesn't produce any side effects. Because now if I look at my original given arrays, or my curated arrays from the filter methods, we can say evens is still 2, 4, 6. Odds are 1, 3, 5, and 7. Evens then odds are the mashing of the two together. And concat is super powerful. If I wanted to simply modify the contents of this array without actually causing any side effects to it or pushing anything into it, I could create a new object from scratch and concat items into that instead, right? Concat is just a fancy term for concatenating your contents, okay? Now, I wouldn't do us any favors if I didn't kind of show you a little bit of a shortcut to the concat method, right? So one of the cool things you can do is actually just spread out all of your my evens and all of your my odds. And I believe we would achieve the same exact item there, okay? So you can use that spread operator to concatenate the contents of an array with the other contents of another array. All right. So hopefully you're able to follow along a little bit with these exercises. There's actually a challenge for you to complete inside of the training kit that will help you kind of follow along and play around with these items. And then there's this really cool article. This really cool article is called The Case of Immutability, and I wanted to just highlight it for you really quick so that you could see what that looks like. So here's this article about immutable JavaScript using ES6 and beyond. Please, please, please read through this today, or as soon as you get a break, go grab some lunch, sit down, eat lunch at your computer, whatever it is you need to do to go through this and play around with this code. Because there is a strong case for immutability in JavaScript, and I want everyone to be able to understand what that case is and what immutability exposes you to as a new developer. Thank you so much for tuning in.